Split. This is the newest in my series of reviewing the Glass trilogy. I'm reviewing or Unbreakable trilogy, whatever you want to call this trilogy. It's a very weird trilogy because they weren't meant to be a trilogy. This review is gonna have spoilers for the post-credit scene, though. I'm sure if you've seen this movie, you know what it was. Split is the sequel kind of to Unbreakable. We'll get into how kind of. But I'm talking about these movies in preparation for Knock at the Cabin, M. Night Shyamalan's next film coming out in about 2 weeks. So next Sunday I'll be reviewing Glass. This week we're talking Split. Last week I talked Unbreakable. So stay tuned for all that coverage. Split is interesting because I've mentioned this in the previous video. M. Night Shyamalan has an insane career. He's made some of the worst films ever made, some of the best films ever made. He's made 10 out of 10 movies. He's made 1 out of 10 movies. He's made okay movies. He's made just completely terrible movies. He's made movies on every spectrum of the board. And this was like after he had just a run of just terrible movies. We had Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action adaptation that is really bad, and the sequel might be even worse. Or not sequel. Netflix adaptation might be even worse, possibly. So we'll see about that. But hey, um, I'm not ready to talk about that shit. But I'm just saying, like, a lot of these things are like that with Split. I'm interested. He came off that movie. He came off of like After Earth. So he comes out with this movie, and it was like this period where everyone thought M. Night Shyamalan was back after this movie, and that did not seem to be the case because this movie's not. To be honest, this movie was overhyped when it came out a little bit. This movie is not a full redemption arc for M. Night Shyamalan. He has not made a good movie since this movie. And I'm hoping his next one can be like a pretty good movie, but it's not gonna happen. I wouldn't even say this is a good movie. I'd say it's a okay movie. It has one great aspect about it, which is uh, J- James McAvoy's incredible performance. Because you got this dude who has, multiple different personalities inside this dude, and he's going insane. He's freaking crazy, and and he's able to like play one of them that's super calm, collective, and then another one who's going berserk, another one that has some kind of like different inflection or tone to his voice. He's able to pull them off perfectly that you believe that all these personalities are like trapped in this dude that's just like going and crazy and kidnapping these girls. I think where this movie falters is I don't really care about these girls. It's this was a younger Anya Taylor Joy. She's become a really fantastic actress. She was in three or two or three of my favorite films of last year. I adored her in The Menu and The Northman. But you watch her in this movie, and just these girls aren't great at acting. They're just not great. I barely remember the other two at all. I forget that they're even part of this movie. I always just remember that Anya Taylor Joy's character is kidnapped because, like, I mean, she has a lot of focus in the movie, but her performance isn't that great. And I have to wonder with Anya Taylor Joy if it was just the simple fact that M. Night Shyamalan's not great with his scripts, and so like I could see her trying to give a lot of range and stuff to the screenplay, but she doesn't really sell a lot of the dialogue. But then again, a lot of the dialogue isn't great. It's not bad like other M. Night Shyamalan movies, and a lot of the actors do a decent job of selling it. But it's just, I don't know. This movie is just kind of like, yeah, I think it's an okay movie. It's a decent thriller. Well, you're invested in what's happening. You're never bored throughout this movie. It's just that with those three girls not being very interesting characters and not having great performances, it just makes it a little hard to connect with the characters you want to get out. Ironically, you connect more with James McAvoy's character, who's the freaking villain of this movie. So there's that. Now let's get into the post-credit scene. So at the end of this movie, they basically set up that this movie's in the same universe as Unbreakable, and it's basically like, oh, James McAvoy and Bruce Willis's character are gonna fight, and there's gonna be like this was basically a supervillain origin story. That's what this was. Like imagine if this was a villain origin story comic book that you were reading. And like in retrospect, that's such a stupid idea because you have these very different types of movies. This is a really solid thriller movie that's entertaining, engaging, has a great performance, has these things going for it. You got Unbreakable. That's a completely different style of movie. It's a very serious drama. It's got incredible acting, incredible writing, and direction to it. It's just a really solid movie. So combining these over was interesting at the time, but actually seeing and really sit down and think about it more than at like 5 minutes, you really see how stupid of an idea this was. Because they weren't meant to be together, and they just kind of just, and it's probably just an idea that M. Night Shyamalan just threw together because he's like, probably saw Marvel's success, and he goes, hey, I made a superhero thing, let me do that. And it just didn't work out because this movie is not meant to be in the same universe as that movie. It feels very weird and tacked on, and yeah, it is weird and tacked on. And, you know, when we get to Glass, even though I remember enjoying that movie, it's still not a great movie. It's actually a bad movie, and I'm curious to see how that one holds up in my memory because I remember really enjoying that movie, but I don't think it's going to get better. I actually think it's going to get worse on rewatch. But Split, you know, I definitely recommend this movie if you've never seen it before. It's a solid movie. It's just not as solid as some people made it out to be. We definitely see now that this is not the return to form that M. Night Shyamalan was talked of having, you know, and this movie is also shown that a lot, you know, people like Anya Taylor-Joy have gone on to be better actresses and things like that and do better things throughout their career. So going back to this is a little bit disappointing, you know, when you've seen some of the other stuff that she's done. So yeah, I thought this was you know, an interesting watch because you know, I realized I had a lot more to say about this movie than I ever intended to because this movie isn't really a hard movie to explain. It's a pretty simple movie. It does what it needs to do very effectively, and that's something I really appreciate about it. But yeah,